From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 Show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 Show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
Welcome to the 301 Show, episode 19. I'm your host, Charlie Wayman. It's good to see you guys again. Got a great show on tap today. We've got the Timberwolves and the Wild in the playoffs. We also have the Twins doing something. And the Vikings have their draft this week. So we've got a lot to get into and more here on today's episode of the 301 Show. All right, moving on to Target Field Talkers here. The Twins are now 7-15. They were 5-11. Excuse me, 5-11 last week. In the AL Central, they are in fourth place still trailing the Tigers, Royals, and Guardians. They are 6.5 games out of first place, so they have fallen in that category, about a game and a half. In the wild card race, they are still in 11th place, only ahead of the Chicago White Sox. They are 5 games out of the third wild card team, which is the Boston Red Sox. Their hitting stats have them at a 211 batting average, which is 27th, a 282 on base percentage, a 338 slugging, a OPS of 621. All of those are 27th in the league, except for slugging is 26th. Runs scored, they have scored 75 runs this season, which is 26th in the league. Home runs, they have 16. That's tied for 24th. Doubles, again, it's the only one they have in the top 10. That is 38 doubles. They are 10th in the league in that. Walks, they have 59, which is tied for 27th. Strikeouts, 100. They have struck out 183 times, which is tied for 16th fewest in the MLB. And stolen bases, they have 12, which is tied for 23rd. Now, I'm sure they would be dead last in that stat if Byron Buxton didn't exist. I'm sure they'd be a lot lower than 26th if runs scored if Byron Buxton didn't exist, because it feels like every time he gets on base, he is stealing second and then coming around to scoring on the following hit. They are pretty good with runners in scoring position this year, which I don't have that stat in front of me exactly, but they are very good in that stat. So it's basically the reverse of last year. For hitting wise, they were good in all of these things, but they just couldn't drive in the runs when runners were in scoring position. Now it's the exact opposite. They're brutal in everything else, but when they do get runners in scoring position, they're pretty good. As for pitching and fielding, they have a team ERA of 4.03, which is 15th lowest in the MLB, so right in the middle. Quality starts, they have 4 quality starts this year, which is tied for 26th. Now, quality starts is, as a reminder, it is a starting pitcher that goes at least 6 innings while allowing 3 or fewer runs in that outing. So their starting pitching has, not done them super well this year, as you can see by the quality starts. The whip is a 1.23, which is tied for 13th. Errors, and how many errors they have 16 errors, which is 26th in the MLB. Fielding percentage, they are sitting at 9.78, which is 27th. So they just are not really that good in any of these categories. Now, like in the NFL, you can win a Super Bowl by being elite at one thing. This past year with the Eagles, They were a little different because they were elite at two things. Probably more than that, but there are, two that pop into my mind with their defense and their run game. The year before that, the Kansas City Chiefs, the 2 years before that, were elite at the quarterback position. You keep going back in these years. The Rams, had an elite defensive line with Aaron Donald. The year before that, again, the Kansas City Chiefs. Excuse me, not the Kansas City Chiefs that year. That was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had an elite quarterback with Tom Brady. In the MLB, you can't really do that and be elite at just one thing. Like, you can't have just one superstar carry you, or two superstars carry you. The biggest example of that is the Angels. They had Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani for what, 7 years? And Shohei didn't make a playoff appearance until he switched teams to the Dodgers. Mike Trout's only made the playoffs once. He's played in 3 playoff games in his entire career. The MLB, you have to have a complete team to actually succeed in the playoffs. This Twins team, I don't see them being good enough to do anything, like even compete for a playoff spot, much less win a playoff game. Like, this team so far is not that good. It's again, we talked about this last week. Over the last 2 years since they won that playoff game, their first playoff game since 2004, since they got knocked out by the Astros, this team has done nothing to keep the fans in that stadium, which actually have the attendance here so far this year. They're averaging this year in 9 home games. They're averaging 17,995 fans. That includes the opening day game where there was 36,700 fans in attendance. That 17,000 includes that 36,000 number. Without that number, it falls to 15,646. 15,000 fans are showing up to Twins games. And it's probably not even 15,000. That's just what they announce. Again, I said last week, the announced attendance is just how many tickets were sold, not how many tickets were scanned. There's probably 10,000 people in attendance at these home games. It's going to be worse this week. They play the White Sox starting tonight. They've got 3 games against the only team in the American League worse than them. People aren't going to show up to those games because usually you can get, you play Milwaukee. Teams will travel, or fans from Wisconsin will travel from like Hudson because it's quicker to come to the Twin Cities than it is to go to Milwaukee from Hudson. You got Cubs fans coming up from Chicago. You've got the Toronto Blue Jays fans in Winnipeg that they would rather travel across the border to the Twin Cities than fly all the way to Toronto for a game. Like, those teams, and then obviously like Dodgers, Yankees, and Red Sox, they're just like, their fan base just travels really well. Not the White Sox, at least not recently. They might have in the mid 2000s when they actually won a World Series. But not this year. This is going to be a brutal attendance series for the Twins. I wouldn't be surprised if there was an announced attendance of less than 10,000 in this series. Wouldn't be surprised. Might actually be surprised if there's not one that's announced at 10,000. That honestly might be more surprising at this point. Now, I understand that they are struggling to put wins on the board, and there are 2 seasons. I hear this from people. There are 2 seasons that people point to say, hey, they started off poorly in these 2 seasons, and that was 1991 and 2006. Obviously, 1991, we know what happened that year. They won the World Series. They started that season 2-9. They had Kirby Puckett, Chuck Knobloch, Shane Mack, Kent Herbeck, Greg Gagne, Chili Davis. That's just the hitters on that team. Top 3 pitchers were Kevin Tapani, Scott Erickson, and Jack Morris. Do you think this team has any players that are as close to making up that type of core on this year's Twins team? Correa, maybe. But he's been awful this year. Buxton, maybe. And all of these, you pick out these guys. Like a Royce Lewis. You say, if he's healthy. You didn't have to worry about that with Kirby Puckett in 1991. You didn't have to say, if Kent Herbeck just could stay healthy and stay on the field. That wasn't, and I know they were, the standards might have been lower back in 91 of for player safety, but that team would go out there and actually fight for something. And they were dead last in the American League the year before in 1990. They were the worst team in the league in 1990. And then they turned it around and won the World Series. But it's because they had a core of Puckett, Knobloch, Mack, Herbeck, Davis, Tapani, Morris. Like they had great players. And in 2006, this season gets overlooked more than 91 because obviously 91 ended in the best way possible, winning a World Series. But 2006, they started the season 9-15. They ended the season with a record of 96-66. This team had Johan Santana, who had a 7.6 WAR and a 2.77 ERA. He won the Cy Young and was 7th in MVP voting. Francisco Liriano, his rookie year, Francisco Liriano. I think people forget how good of a pitcher Francisco Liriano actually was before he had Tommy John surgery. Francisco Liriano had a 4.5 WAR, a 2.16 ERA, and was 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting. He had a 2.16 ERA as a rookie in this league. Both of those guys were all-stars. And coming out of the bullpen to end games, you could have those two guys go 8 innings and then turn it over to Joe Nathan in the 9th inning, who had a 3.3 WAR. As a closer in the MLB, Joe Nathan finished 5th in Cy Young Award voting in 2006. He finished 18th as a closer in MVP voting. 18th. They're position players. They had Torrey Hunter out in center field, who had 3.3 WAR. He had won the Gold Glove that year. Buxton might win the Gold Glove. That's probably the only one that's super comparable on this list, is Buxton might be actually comparable to Torrey Hunter. They also had Nick Punto running around out there, a 3.8 WAR. He had a 290 average, a 352 on base, and a 373 slugging. The Twins are going to be lucky if they get a guy with that slash line this year at the rate this is going. That was Nick Punto. It's also not to mention they had the start of the M&M brothers that year. Justin Morneau had a 3.8 WAR. He had a 321, 375, and 559 slash line. He won the Silver Slugger. He also finished 1st in MVP voting. He won the MVP that year in 2006. Joe Mauer, 5.8 WAR, led the league in batting average with a 347, had a 490 or 429 on base, and a 507 slugging percentage. Came in 6th in MVP voting. The Twins had 3 players in the top 7 of MVP voting that year. And then their closer was in the top 20. Joe Mauer also won a Silver Slugger. They had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They had 5 awards brought home that year. They had a Gold Glove, 2 Silver Sluggers, the MVP, and the Cy Young. They almost had the Rookie of the Year, too, with Francisco Liriano. They had 3 All-Stars that year. It's absolutely atrocious that anybody should be comparing the 2025 Twins to either of the 2006 or 1991 Twins. Absolutely despicable. Those two teams would absolutely slaughter this team. It is a disgrace to the 2006 Twins and the 1991 Twins if you even breathe the 2025 Twins in the same sentence as those two teams. It's a disgrace to those two teams. Absolutely not. It's brutal. If you want to hold out hope that this Twins team might have a chance at making the playoffs, they're only 5 games out of a wild card spot. I don't think they're winning the division. The saying is you don't win a division in April, but you sure can lose it. I think the Twins lost the division already. April's not even over yet. I don't think they're winning the division this year. I'd love to be proven wrong. I will gladly be proven wrong on that one. But I really don't think they're winning the division this year. Now, do need to talk about one good thing from this week. So they did win the series against the Mets. They got swept by the Braves. They are 2-4 in their last 6 games against the NL East. The one really, really good thing is Luke Keeschall. He came up, made his debut on Friday night against the Braves in Atlanta. He looked amazing. He looked so good. Now, I think, this is going to be a hot take, I think that the Twins probably going to have to fire Baldelli at some point. That one probably happens pretty quickly here if you think you can somehow salvage this season. I think he's canned before the end of the season. I think he might be canned before the All-Star break. He might be, canned before May 1st. If the Twins truly think that they can salvage this season, he should be gone. If they lose a game to the White Sox, he should be gone. They already lost to the White Sox 9-0. But I want to see these younger guys come up in AAA. They've got some players here in AAA, like a Luke Keeschall. They've got Zebby Matthews, who's been on fire for the Saints this year. David Festa has come up and pitched pretty well in the MLB. Last year, these guys had to come up because they had so many injuries to the pitching staff. I want to see these guys come up because they actually deserve a chance this year in the MLB. I'm okay not making the playoffs if it means the younger guys are getting a ton of playing time. I'm okay with that. Because then these young guys, like the Luke Keeschall, like the Zebby Matthews, like the David Festa, they're all getting actual MLB experience. But the problem now is, who do you get rid of? Carlos Correa's got a no-move clause. He'd probably be the number 1 guy on my list at this point. But he's got to be okay with it. He's got to say, yes, I want to go somewhere. You have to go to him. Do you want to be traded? He's got to say yes. So I mean, it's honestly with that in consideration, it's Ty France, Harrison Bader, probably. I hate to say this, but closers are probably the last thing you need on a team that's being rebuilt. Johan Duran, absolutely love Johan Duran. We should be keeping him because the Twins should be good. But they don't need a closer right now because they aren't going to be competing for anything. I think that those three players, and then I'd put Carlos Correa probably fourth on that list. Maybe Buxton up there. Those are probably my top five. Or Ty France, Harrison Bader number one, Ty France number two, Johan Duran number three, Carlos Correa four, Byron Buxton five. In terms of who is available at the deadline, who I'm trying to get rid of first, basically, because I think they have those guys have the most trade value, while they also have contracts that actually work. That's another thing with Carlos Correa. He's making a boatload of money. Even if he says, yes, I'll give up the no trade clause. Not many teams are going to be willing to take him because of that massive contract he signed a couple years ago. And he looks like he might be hurt, like something's up with that ankle, and that's why the Mets and the Giants both said no on him. He declined an option after his first year with us to come back for one more year. He went out and signed a 10-year contract, or almost, he agreed to terms with the Giants on a 10-year contract. The Giants did a physical and said, no, we don't want him. Then signed a 10-year contract with the Mets. Mets said, nah, we're good. After doing the physical. The Twins said, we'll sign you to a 5-year deal. It's honestly biting them in the ass at this point. I think this team is in limbo until the Pohlads actually figure out what they're going to do with this, if they're going to sell the team or not. Because they have the right to pull the team off the market. They are still the owners. The Twins are the Pohlads team until they're not. And I hope this sale also goes better than the one next door at Target Center. I hope they either figure out, no, we're not going to sell this team, or yes, we are, and we're just done with it. Everything is just frustrating with the Twins at this point. Absolutely everything. So I got 3 predictions here. Nothing came off the board for Target Field Talkers. So 3 predictions going on the board. First one is that the Twins will sweep the White Sox. Second one, Twins lose at least 2 out of 3 against the Angels. Going to give you a little bit of hope. I think both of these things do come true. I think they're going to give you a little bit of hope and then snatch it right back. And the last prediction is this season, there will be at least 3 games with an announced attendance of less than 10,000 fans at Target Field. I think it very well could be all 3 against the White Sox. So, Twins sweep the White Sox. The Twins lose at least 2 of 3 against the Angels. And there will be at least 3 games this year with an announced attendance of less than 10,000 fans at Target Field. All right, now moving on to the Nordic Report. A little bit of a different order today, but I figured we could end with the 2 teams in the playoffs right now. Yes, so welcome to the Nordic Report. We have the draft this week. They've got the first round on Thursday, and the second and third rounds on Friday, and then the final 4 rounds on Saturday. So There are 3 options to go over here. The Vikings have picked 24. There's 3 options for them at 24. And then I've got a mock draft that I will go over after this scenario here at 24. So 3 options. First option is, I'm going to say this one is, I think, the least likely to happen, and that is trading up. I think with how much they traded up last year, how much they gave up to trade up last year, I don't think they're trading up this year. I just don't think they have enough to do that unless they go into like next year's stock. But again, I don't think they will do that. I don't think they should do that. And because I also don't think it's going to take like pick 24 and a 7th to move up. Like I don't think that's enough value for the other team that they're trading up with. So could possibly trade up. Again, I don't see that happening though at all. The second 2 options, I am basically 50-50 on what they're actually going to do. And that is the first one is stick and pick at 24. And then trade back is the third option. So, I'm 50-50 on what they should do, on what I want them to do. I think either one of these 2 options should be decided on based off of, what is available at 24 when you get there. I think this should be you are on the clock option. Excuse me, one sec. Yeah, this should be an option or a decision, of this decision should take place in those 10 minutes you have when you're on the clock at pick 24. I think you should have some feelers out, but I think the actual decision should be made at pick 24 when they are on the clock. Because I could see, someone that's a projected top 10 pick falling, and it's best player available at that point, or they could, just trade back if there's a couple of safeties, a cornerback that you like, a D tackle you like, a offensive guard or a tackle you can move into guard that you like. I think if there's enough of those, if there's like 5 or 6 of those, trade back 5 or 6 spots. And there will be 100% at least one of those guys available. Plus you pick up a couple extra or an extra draft pick. You add extra capital. Because right now they have 24, 97, 139, and 187 are their draft picks right now. So they only have 4. And it's a first, a third round comp from Danielle Hunter and Kirk Cousins leaving last year, a 5th round pick, and a 6th round pick. It used to be 2 5ths, but they did a pick swap with the 49ers in the Jordan Mason trade. So I just think that picking up extra capital too, if there's enough available at 24, is the best move. But if there's not enough available, or there is very clearly a guy that will not be there if you trade back, that you think is miles ahead of any other player, take that guy. Stick and pick and take that guy. But yeah, I did this mock draft here. So I went in here with 4 draft picks, and I ended up making a trade from 24 with the New Orleans Saints. Traded back from 24 to pick 40. Again, this is probably a little bit more than I would like them to trade back, but it worked out in this case. So I gave New Orleans pick 24. I picked up pick 40, 71, and 254. So now we have 6 picks in this year's draft class. And at pick 40, Kenneth Grant, the D tackle from Michigan, was still available. I don't know how realistic that is in actuality, but it ended up working out where Kenneth Grant was available at 40. I took him at 40. At 71, again, another one of those picks I got from the Saints, which is early third round pick or mid third round pick. At 71, picked up Darian Porter, the cornerback from Iowa State. At 97, the comp pick from the Kirk Cousins and Danielle Hunter, Kevin Winston Jr. He's a safety from Penn State. And then at 139 was Chase Lunt, the O tackle from UConn. At 139, 187 was running back out of Cincinnati, Corey Kiner. Again, we know how much success Kwesi's had with the late Cincinnati picks / undrafted Cincinnati players. Ivan Pace Jr. being the crown jewel of the late draft / undrafted Cincinnati talent that the Vikings have gotten over the last couple of years. And then at 254, picked up Brandon Cranshaw Dixon, the O tackle from Florida. So picked up a couple tackles that could potentially move into guard. And that's another thing I want to talk about here is they have, I think, 4 of their 5 offensive line spots, assuming everyone is healthy. This is assuming, O'Neal and Darisaw, specifically Darisaw, are both ready to go week 1. And, the Will Fries and Ryan Kelly will 100% be ready to go. Those are the 4 guys I'm assuming are starters week 1. What do you do at left guard, basically, is the question at this point. And I think if you look at the advanced analytics, I think Blake Brandel, when he played alongside of Christian Darisaw, he actually put up really good numbers. He put up fantastic numbers. So I wouldn't mind seeing him there, again, assuming that Christian Darisaw is available to be back, like his injury didn't set him back that much. And he will be ready to go week 1. I also think that them going out and drafting like a Kelvin Banks Jr. or a Gray Zabel, Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas or a Gray Zabel from NDSU would be great too, because both of those guys can move into guard. Gray Zabel, I'm pretty sure, has played 4 of the 5 offensive line positions. The only one he hasn't is center. And so he can move around the offensive line. But they moved him to tackle because this last year at NDSU, he also had, reports were saying that he had a bunch of Power 5, maybe not a bunch, but Power 5 and FBS teams reach out to him before this past season at NDSU, asking if he would transfer for NIL money, and he said no. He's like, I want to stay at NDSU because we've built something here, and he did, and they won a national championship, or at least they won the national championship, and that just shows the kind of guy he is, and so I think adding a guy like him to this offensive line would be fantastic. I think Kelvin Banks Jr. would be fantastic too. It's just I don't think he's going to make it to pick 24. He's the guy I mean if he made it to 24, stick and pick. 100% stick. Like, Kwesi needs to run. I know they're not there in person, but whoever is bringing that card up to, whoever the Vikings representative to bring that card up to the commissioner on Thursday, if Kelvin Banks Jr. is on the board, should be sprinting up to the stage. They need Kelvin Banks Jr. I'm 100% there. He can move to guard, learn from Darisaw, but also he can play tackle if one of them goes down. If Darisaw isn't ready for week 1, he can be the starting left tackle week 1. So I think my preference is for a stick and pick, it would be a tackle. I think an offensive lineman, a tackle that can play guard. So, yeah, that is my predictions here. Or that is my unofficial prediction here for the Nordic Report draft, how that's going to go. We've got a few predictions. Didn't have any come off the board here for the Nordic Report. So we're getting a couple on the board. So 3 draft predictions. So all 3 of these will come off the board by next week. First one is the Vikings will not pick at 24. They will make some sort of trade. I'm predicting that this could be before 24, could be after 24. I'm just saying they will not pick at 24. I also think that the Vikings will pick more than 4 times in 2025. In this year's draft class, so again, both of these can come true if they move back from 24 and they pick up more draft capital. I also think the Vikings will make a first-round selection. I know my mock draft had them drop into 40, which is out of the first round. That's early to mid-second round. I think it's pick 8. Pick 40 is the 208. But yeah, the Vikings will make a first-round selection is my official prediction here on the Nordic Report. All right, now let's move on to the Wolves' Den here, where the Wolves in Game 1 in LA beat, quote-unquote, upset the Los Angeles Lakers 117-95. They were down 7-15 at the beginning of the game, but then came back, and this game was never really in question. I know a lot of Timberwolves fans were having flashbacks to the Milwaukee game when the Lakers cut the lead from like 20-something to 12. But then Ant hit a 3 and just put them back up by 15. And again, I don't think it was really ever in question after that. And the couple of massive storylines from this game. The first one is that Jaden McDaniels, it was an absolute legacy game for him. He had 25 points. He was 11 of 13 from the field. He was 3 for 3 from the beyond the 3-point arc. He also had 9 rebounds and 2 assists. Ant put up 22 points on 8 of 22 shooting. He was 4 of 9 from 3. He had 8 rebounds and 9 assists. Again, wasn't that great for an Anthony Edwards game. Like, he wasn't that good. He wasn't that efficient. The 22 points in an NBA game is still pretty good, but knowing what Ant can do, scoring-wise, that wasn't that great. But he was feeding everybody else. He realized everybody else is eating here. I'll just feed everyone else. He did have that massive 3 that I think it was McDaniels and I think it was Rudy maybe. Both just started running the other way as he shot it, like knowing it was going to go in. And it went in. To be fair, it was in. And I don't think in this next game they're going to be able to shoot 50% from the 3-point arc. They had 42 3-point attempts in that game. The Wolves did. They were 21 of 42. Of those 42, there were 27 of them were classified as wide open shots. 15 of them were classified as open shots. There were 0 that were tight or very tight defensive efforts on those 3-point shots. I don't think the Lakers are going to be able to do that again, or are going to allow the Timberwolves to do that again. I think Game 2 will be a tighter game than Game 1. Tighter defensive game for the Lakers than Game 1. And when you get the Timberwolves play tonight, they played on Saturday. They got 2 days off in between games 1 and 2. Usually you get the 2 games off on a travel day, like between games 2 and 3, or games 4 and 5. or later in the series too. But usually, I don't want to say this is every time, this is just usually the extra day benefits the team that lost. Like the Wolves want to get out there right now and play again. Like they wanted to get out there last night because they knew what was working. This extra time gives the Lakers more time to adjust. JJ Redick, I still think, is a good coach. May not have made any, enough in-game adjustments, but I think he's gonna make the adjustments needed to, make it at least a close game in game 2. I don't think the Wolves are winning by 22 points again in game 2. I think they probably lose game 2. In all reality, I think they probably lose game 2. Because I also don't think the Lakers want to lose both on home court and potentially get swept. But game 1 was absolutely amazing. DDV, Dante DiVincenzo had the 3 at the end of the half, the buzzer beater at the end of the half. He knew where that camera was. He knew exactly what he was doing. He shot it, turned around, stared down the barrel of the camera, and did his 3-point celebration. Absolutely amazing. They held LeBron to 19 points. Now, I did hear this stat the other day that said LeBron has only had like 3 games of 30-plus points in the playoffs since the bubble of 2020. Like, I think the Wolves need to worry more about Luka than LeBron at this point. That's not to say that they shouldn't worry about LeBron at all. I just think Luka at this point is a bigger threat than LeBron is. But I also think the Wolves have a deeper bench than the Lakers do. Because what happens if LeBron doesn't have a good game, Luka does, it's who else do they go to? Austin Reeves? Maybe. What happens if Ant doesn't have a good game? You go to Julius Randle. You go to Naz Reid. You have Jaden McDaniels shut him down on defense or, put up 25 points. You have Rudy Gobert to shut down the defense if Ant doesn't have a good game. I think the Wolves had a lot more options, albeit maybe not. Like, I still think the 3 best players in this series are very clearly a top 3. I think there's probably a clear top 2. But there is very clearly a top 3 players in this series, and then there's everyone else. I think the Lakers could very well have 3 of the top 5 best players in this series, with Luka, LeBron, and maybe Austin Reeves as the 3rd. I think if you made it a top 10, I think the Wolves probably have the rest of the top 10. I think they have 6 of the top 10 for sure. They could very well have 7 of the top 10. Like this, like, if you want to say Luka is the best player in this series, I'm not going to argue with you. I probably would put him as the best player in this series. I will argue with you if about Ant being the second best player in this. I think Ant is the second best player in this series. I think LeBron is 3rd. And again, after that, it's Wolves dominated. I think it's, again, maybe except for Austin Reeves, I think it is all Wolves in the top 10. 4 through 10 is 1 Laker, and the rest are Wolves. Now, the key thing from Luka's game is he put up 37 points in game 1. He only had 1 assist. This is the UConn versus Purdue national championship strategy. UConn's strategy in that game was Zach Edey is going to put up 30 to 40 points on us regardless of if we guard him or not. We could maybe turn a 30-point game or a 40-point game into a 30-point game. He's still going for 30. Let's guard everyone else. I think the number one way that the Wolves win this series is by saying Luka's going to have 30 points. Let's make sure he only has one assist like he did. Let's make sure every other part of his game is thrown off. I think that is the, and then by doing, if they throw off every other part of his game, they do that by shutting down everyone else too. If he doesn't have anyone to pass to, and doesn't have a very clear lane to the hoop, I think the Wolves could easily win this series. Again, I don't think they're going to do this, but if they shoot 50% from three, they're winning it all. I don't think they lose a game in this entire playoff run if they shoot 50% from three while also having 42 3-pointers. They're not losing. Again, I don't think that's sustainable over the course of an entire playoff run. But if they do that, they're not gonna lose a game. Jaden McDaniels goes 11 of 13 and 3 for 3 from 3. Say that 10 times fast. 3 for 3 from 3. He puts up that stat line again. I don't think they lose a series. I think they win it all. Like, that was the absolute blueprint on what the Wolves need to do to have success in this playoff run. And like I said last week, 17-17 through 34 games. They were 32-17 cents. They were 17-4 to end the year. They were now on an 18-4 run in the last, what would that be, 22 games of the year? The last 21 regular season and then the one playoff game, they're 22-4. This team just needed a little bit of time to figure this out. Patience. I've been saying this on this show for months since they made the Cat trade. Just have some patience and let them figure out the team chemistry. The Cat trade happened the day before training camp started. They did not have any time. I don't think it actually went through. It wasn't made official until a couple days into training camp. Just sometimes we just need to have a little bit more patience with our sports teams. And I understand that's maybe a little bit contradictory from what I was saying at the beginning with the Twins, but they're so bad at this. The Twins are so bad at this point that I don't see them coming back. But with the Timberwolves, like, they have they had the team, the blueprints there. And the games they were losing at the beginning of the year, there was the underlying, statistics that showed that they just weren't as bad of a team as people thought they were. So I think they have a very, very good chance to win this series. They play tonight. As I'm recording this on Tuesday the 22nd. Play at 9 p.m. tonight. I think there's multiple ways they can win tonight and again win this series. They can continue playing well defensively. Ant can be more efficient in his shooting. Again, 8 of 22 in game 1. Still put up 22 points. There are so many ways to win, to beat this Lakers team, that I don't know how they're going to lose. So, absolutely great game 1. But again, I should say, I don't know how they're going to lose. There is one way I know how they lose, and that is they take the foot off the gas. Because I think it is more likely that they beat themselves than the Lakers beat them. In a series, in a 7-game series. Maybe not in a game, But in a 7-game series, I think they have a better chance to beat themselves than the Lakers do beating them. So those are my thoughts on the Game 1 win in LA. Let's move on to the predictions here. I did have 3 come off the board. First one, we'll start with the bad. The first one was that the Wolves will beat the Mavericks in the playoffs this year. That won't happen. The Mavericks got beat in the play-in tournament, so that will not happen. I did say last episode that Rudy will win the opening tip-off in Game 1. He did not. Didn't matter, though. We won the game. And then in a couple episodes ago, I said that the Wolves will win a playoff, not play-in game this year. So 1 game in, and that one is correct. So that brings my total to 10 of 39 for 26% on the year. Also, going back to the last 2, I'm 3 of 15 on Target Field Talkers and 12 of 38 on the Nordic Report. I know I had none come off the board, but I just wanted to update on that, on those 2 segments. So, 3 predictions now going on the board here. I'm going to say that Ant is the Game 2 leading scorer between both teams, and the Wolves will win Game 2. So, Wolves win Game 2, Ant is the leading scorer. Next prediction is Naz Reid is the leading scorer between both teams in a playoff game before the Wolves get knocked out. It doesn't have to be this series, could be this series, but could, be a series further down the line. Naz Reid will lead the scoring between both teams. Final prediction here. Shout out to Shannon Sharp for this one. Got High Dive, Beehive, Staying Alive, Wolves in 5. All right, and finally we're moving on to Rinkside Rundown here, where the Wild lose Game 1 to the Vegas Golden Knights 4-2. Awful beat there if you are a betting person. The over-under was 5.5 goals, and the Golden Knights scored an empty netter with 0.1 seconds left on the clock. The Wild were also plus 1.5, so that empty net goal made it 2 goals. So just a brutal, brutal beat for any of you sports gamblers out there. Then for the Wild, Boldy had 2 goals. Kirill had 2 assists and had an insanely good pass to Matt Boldy on Boldy's first goal. That was a goal that tied it at 1 in the first period. Zeev Buyam made his NHL debut in that game, which I've got some thoughts on that. Which actually, let's just get into those couple of thoughts here. Let's go back to Kirill. I thought that was the best game Kirill has played since coming back from his injury. Like, this guy was on pace for over 50 goals. He was the clear-cut betting favorite for the Hart Trophy for the NHL's MVP. And if he hadn't gotten hurt, I think he would have won the Hart Trophy. And I think games like this are, even though he didn't score, passes like the one he made to Boldy are the reason why he was the favorite to win the league's MVP award. Zeev Buyam, I've got a little bit of a rant here because this was a pretty good game, but I also think it was a very frustrating game at the same time because Zeev Buyam made his NHL debut, and he looked nervous. He looked really like, there's no other way to say it. It looked like he was making his NHL debut. Which again makes sense. Like, it makes sense that you would have some nervous jitters and before and during your first NHL game ever. And what's frustrating about that, not that he had the jitters. That's not the frustrating part. The frustrating part is why they didn't play him against Anaheim. He had signed his contract before the Anaheim game in game 82. I don't understand why John Hines sat him in that game. And if the reason is, oh, he was tired, you're gonna be tired. I'd rather have him be a little bit tired in that game, but get those jitters out of the way. And he'd make his NHL debut in front of the home fans, too, in game 82. Marc-Andre Fleury's last regular season game of his career. Which, that's another thing we can talk about here. That was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Last game of the regular season. They get the point. Joel Eriksson scores with 20 seconds left in regulation. They make it to overtime. They get the point they need to clinch a playoff spot. And then Gus apparently pulled himself and said, Flower, you're going in. Absolutely amazing. Flower had to pull out a pad stack in overtime. It's not like, I thought there was going to be one of three ways that overtime period went. And it was either one, they let in a super soft goal within like 30 seconds of overtime and they lose. Two, they take a penalty and they get scored on the penalty kill. That one almost happened. Or three, they win the game. Like, in my mind, those are the only three. Like, there wasn't going to be an Anaheim, like, absolute snipe job up top. Like, that wasn't going to happen. But, yeah, absolutely great last period of the regular season. But back to this game. Back to game one of the playoffs. There is zero reason that Bouillon shouldn't have played in that game. And if you think, oh, well, we needed the win, we needed to play John Merrill and Zach Bogosian on the bottom line, we needed those guys because we needed to make the playoffs. Why weren't those guys in the game one? If that is the reason Zeev Bouillon didn't play in game 82, he shouldn't be playing in game one of the playoffs either. Like, no, I don't think that actually is the reason. I think Bouillon is actually good enough to be playing in the playoffs. He was good enough to man the top power play. That's insane. As a 19-year-old, he's manning the top power play for the Wild. So it wasn't that, but if it was, he shouldn't be playing in these playoffs either. Now, I think, again, he just looked nervous. It looked like he had jitters, which, again, I don't blame him for. I blame John Hines for. Matt Boldy, he had the 2 goals. He had only scored 1 playoff goal in his career before that. Again, frustrating about him is he can have games where he scores 2 goals and looks like the best forward out there. Him and Kirill looked like they were about even in skill level. Now, I think, Kirill is a way better forward than Boldy is, but they look like they had the equal skill out there, which is so frustrating when you get games against like Chicago where Boldy looks awful. It's so frustrating to watch and see the pendulum swing too far in either direction. It's like, Boldy, I'd rather you find some sort of middle ground consistently than have a game like that and then follow it up where it probably would have been better if you were scratched sitting next to Bill Guerin eating popcorn. Like I'd rather have you, have a goal and in the next game you have an assist. Like, you putting up 1 point, you're a point a game play. I'd rather have that than you putting up 5 points in a game and then 0, but you also let in 7 goals. Like, Boldy, just the consistency is frustrating with Boldy. Now, I thought Gus played phenomenally in that game. Stopped 23 of 26 shots. There was one short side one that he probably should have had, but the second goal that on the power play that Vegas scored, not much he's going to do about that one. It wasn't just another one they'd set up on the power play and It was like Kirill's pass where it's just beautiful passing by the Golden Knights. And the Golden Knights just, I think, outplayed the Wild in that game. I didn't think the Wild played terribly. But again, it's frustrating to watch this team play like that, because then there's other games where they just didn't show up. Or nobody showed up. And again, I don't think Kirill had great games after coming back, but it still looked like he was recovering from surgery. Not blaming him for that. He literally had surgery. But when Gus is standing on his head, like, and Boldy scores too, like, again, the depth needs to find a way to help out there too. Now, the penalty kill is sitting at the worst penalty kill in the playoffs. They are 0 for 2 on the penalty kill, so they are sitting at 0% in dead last on the penalty kill. I guess the penalty kill did not realize they had to play more than 82 games this year, because the penalty kill did not have to play more than 82 games last year. What did show up was the Wild on the faceoff dot. They won 60% of the faceoffs in that game. Again, I don't know if that's going to continue. But it'd be great if they were even, 50-50 on that. They were 47% from the 46% or whatever it was from the faceoff dot in the regular. Well, before game 82, they were 46.7 from the faceoff dot before game 82. I don't think 60% is again sustainable, especially against a team like Vegas. Now, it might be against like a Jack Eichel, who isn't great on the, like, that's probably his weakest point, is the faceoff dot. But Vegas has a good team. So again, you can't be too frustrated with basically what is a 3-2 loss. But there are ways that this team can improve and actually win games in this series. I think if they turn it up 5-10%, they could maybe even win this series. But again, they're going to have to be consistent. They have to be play this consistently well over the entire series. There's no excuse for laying a goose egg in one of these games. I don't mean just getting shut out. I mean your performance just not showing up either. So if we look ahead to the game tonight, which starts at 10 p.m. Central Time. So you got the Twins tonight at 6:40. You got the Wolves tonight at 9, and then the Wild tonight at 10. Wild are still looking for their first win against Vegas this year. They started off Vegas's first couple years in the league. The Wild dominated the Golden Knights. It's flipped since. 0-3 in the regular season, obviously 0-1. They haven't even gotten a point. They haven't even forced overtime against this team. So, absolutely have to step it up at this point against the Golden Knights if they want to go anywhere. And again, I don't mean step it up to force an overtime, because in the playoffs, overtime losses don't matter. So, but two interesting stats I saw here, and then I saw some news from Michael Russo. Two interesting stats here. Kirill Kaprizov has played 16 games against the Vegas Golden Knights. He has 10 goals, 5 assists for 15 points. Joel Eriksson Ek has played 24 games against the Vegas Golden Knights. He has 7 goals, 8 assists for 15 points. So again, I think in game 2, the Wild are going to need to rely on Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek a lot. I think Eriksson Ek is going to need to keep winning faceoffs. He's going to have to go out there and keep winning faceoffs. Of all the centers they have on their team, he is the most experienced, that has also the best talent. In terms of best talent, it's either him or Marco Rossi. But he has far more experience in this league than Marco Rossi does. So they're going to have to heavily rely on Joel Eriksson Ek to keep winning faceoffs and, keep being the playmaking two-way forward that he is. News from Michael Russo is that they are sticking with Zeev Buium in Game 2. I think that's the right decision. I think now that he has had that experience in the NHL, he's hopefully gotten most of those jitters out of him. He can step up a little bit more here. I think Zeev Buium will be he's going to be a very good, very, very good defenseman. And I think he's going to be making a big impact in this game tonight. So if we move over to predictions, I had 3 come off the board. We'll start with the bad again. First one is Kirill Kaprizov will have 50-plus goals this season. He did not. Again, I think he would have if he had stayed healthy. Predicted that one all the way back in episode 4, which I think is the second episode I started doing predictions. In this last episode, I said that Zuki scores the next playoff goal for the Wild whenever that next playoff goal happens. He did not. That was Matt Boldy. Did salvage it a little bit by saying the Wild will beat the Anaheim Ducks in Game 82, which they did. So that brings the Rinkside Rundown total to 10 of 37 for 27% ever. Lifetime combined total for all of these are 35 of 129 for 27%. So 3 new predictions going on the board here. So I mentioned Zeev Buium will be playing here in Game 2. Because of that, I think the Wild win Game 2. And I think if you look at the historical trends here between the Wild and Golden Knights, Wild always seem to bounce back somehow against the Golden Knights. So I think, again, because of that, the Wild win Game 3. I've got, final prediction here. The Gus Bus, again, just phenomenal in Game 1. So Wild win Game 4. So my 3 predictions are Wild win Game 2, the Wild win Game 3, and the Wild win Game 4. All right, thanks for watching this episode of the 301 Show, episode 19. Drop a comment down below where you agree, disagree. I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything we talked about today. Let me know how you think the Wolves and Wild are going to do in the playoffs. And let me know, too, who you think the Vikings are going to draft. And we don't really need to talk about the Twins in the comment section that much if you don't want to. But, again, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.